So when I sought out to make this video, I thought it was going to be an easy slam dunk. I just complain about fan service and how it sucks most of the time, but Japan has different views on certain things and it's not that big of a deal over there, yada yada. I really did think it would be that easy, but as I learned more and more, I started to come to the realization that there was so much more to this than I originally thought. Japan didn't just randomly decide that the panty shot increased sales, so I sought to understand the origins of this practice. And along the way, I came across some unlikely and interesting truths. So let's start at the beginning. If you've watched anime before, you certainly know what I'm talking about, but for those uninitiated, allow me to get you up to speed. Anime has this interesting quirk in which they insert completely random bits of what is called fan service. Now, fan service doesn't have to be inherently bad. Sometimes it just means, as the name implies, to give the fans what they want. Depending on the type of show, this can range from cameos, meta references, and hype battle scenes with epic music. But as you can imagine, fans often want things that you could consider uncomfortable. Showing characters in compromising situations, accidental exposure, an upskirt, or a good old guy next bounce. The list goes on, but one thing is certain: over-sexualization, especially of the female variety, although there is the occasional man service. Now, of course, you don't need me to tell you why the occasional bit of eye candy wouldn't help certain viewers stay engaged, but when it comes to the detriment of the plot, and most often than not objectify women, things start to get dicey. Alright, how about a specific example? Introducing Fire Force, a fairly bog-standard shonen anime that is about superpowered firefighters combating flaming zombies whilst trying to uncover the mysteries of why humans spontaneously combust. You know, standard anime plot, with an interesting premise, decent animation in my opinion, world-class sound design, and a banger opening. Fire Force would have made for a fantastic anime to recommend to all your friends. That would be the case if it wasn't for Tamaki.
Huh? Wanna tell me what you're staring at, loser?
Nothing.
Tamaki is a character that completely ruins the tone of her show. It feels like she was added just to be a damsel in distress for the heroes of the story, as well as to do this. Trust me when I say that Tamaki could be entirely removed from the story and nothing, and I mean nothing, of value would be lost, simply because she doesn't contribute anything to the story. And this is what people often mean by bad fan service. Completely random, out-of-place scenes that exist solely to appeal to some primal perverted desire instead of keeping the viewers engaged through meaningful content. Entire characters are made just for these types of moments. Moments like this in anime cause me a lot of discomfort, and I don't think I'm alone. Now I bet you're asking the question, how did we get here? Alright, even though you didn't ask that question, I'm gonna explain it to you anyway. Stereotypical fan service scenes, such as the infamous panty shot, weren't actually at the forefront of Japanese entertainment media until the 1980s. Would have botched this really badly, but Hadaka no Tsukai, or naked socializing, is a term and phrase that basically amounts to the platonic saying, we're all the same while we're naked. This refers to the practice of communal bathing in Japan. The communal baths, or sento, were a common way for people to socialize and cleanse their bodies, and they were often unisex as well. Communal baths still exist to this day, although the practice is waning in public spaces. For many Japanese families, sharing a bath at home is quite normal. Nudity in itself wasn't inherently considered erotic or sexual, but rather a normal and even necessary part of everyday life. This is further exemplified by something known as shunga, which translates to spring pictures. Shunga were erotic artworks that depicted sexual acts and were often chiseled onto wooden blocks or painted onto scrolls. While these artworks were considered explicit, they were not necessarily seen as taboo or shameful. In fact, they were often given as gifts. Samurai would carry them as lucky charms, and stone owners would even have them in their shops as they believed it would ward off fires. Mothers even gave them to their sons and daughters once they became couples. Imagine your mom basically giving you hentai once you got hitched. You know, Japan had a good thing going for it. But America happened. With the introduction of Western ideologies, Japan started to adopt more conservative attitudes towards sexuality. Sexuality and nudity were increasingly seen as shameful and sinful. These views were further reinforced by Japan rapidly modernizing during the late 1800s and early 1900s. As the country industrialized and adopted Western values, the once accepted practices of communal bathing and shunga were increasingly stigmatized and suppressed. Point being, before the US arrived, Japan was very open about nudity and eroticism, without much of a negative connotation attached to it. But with the United States breathing down their necks, Japan started to slowly reform towards these Western Victorian-style beliefs. Later in the Meiji era, Western clothing started to gain popularity among the wealthy due to them wanting to emulate Western countries and their success, thus pushing these sorts of styles into public consciousness. Then World War II came along, during which Japanese women were encouraged to wear cheap pants instead of their more expensive traditional garments. Spoiler alert, Japan lost World War II, nuking their economy. So the only women who could wear this now stylish and expensive Western clothing were the escorts that serviced the Allied soldiers and the rich, making Western-style undergarments suddenly become a sign of wealth and sexual promiscuity. Once the economy began to stabilize and Japan started to industrialize, women could finally start buying clothing again, but there was still a shortage of fabrics. So the ladies with their newly disposable income bought the only thing they really could, imported products from the Western world. As you can guess, this includes Western-style panties and skirts. Funnily enough, even the government promoted these styles of clothing over the more traditional, revealing wear from the past. And without going on for too long, this basically means America gave Japan the panty fetish. Thanks, Obama. And with the rise of anime and manga during the late 1960s all the way through the 1980s, the first ever fan service Panchira was born. Once Japanese artists realized that what we know as fan service increased sales, it quickly became a race to the bottom. Bouncing boobs that defied the laws of physics, characters always seemingly falling face first into pussy, shower shots, and the infamous beach episode. I know, it's not like Japan has ever been adverse to these sorts of things. Knowing their past, these things quickly became the norm in anime and manga. The name fanservice implies that there are indeed fans of said work. These people have to and actually do exist. So anime studios and mangaka continue making these moments. In anime and manga, the most popular genres are shonen and seinen, with the target audience mainly being teenagers and young adults. It's pretty obvious as to why fan service is so profitable. I see these scenes as weird sexual gratification. My sources are a little shaky here, but Japanese viewers apparently see it in a more humorous way. Much like in American cartoons where extreme violence is seen as hilarious, despite showing off offensive material, these serious topics are just played for laughs. Cartoons and animation are for kids is an idea most people believe in growing up. When Japanese animation comes along and breaks all these conventions, people are bound to get angry and uncomfortable. So what do I think about all this? Now I might sound crazy here, but hear me out. Maybe fanservice in anime and manga being so hypersexualized, and I'm going to be honest here, degenerate, is actually a symptom of a much larger problem. Much like America and their glorification of violence and guns in their media, despite suffering from these very things, Japan might have a problem much like this. Japan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, and its population is set to decline massively by the middle of the century. Many people point towards their stifling work culture and oppressive societal norms as the cause, making people opt out of relationships and the pursuit of a family life altogether. Now, this is a massive dilemma impacting most developed countries in the world, but it is especially bad in Japan. This issue is a lot more nuanced than I'm letting on, but one thing is certain: people want to have sex and they want to have a family, but the way Japanese society is structured, a ton of people just do not have time for it. So they start to feel pent up and they need a way to alleviate these desires within them. Fortunately or unfortunately, Japan has many ways to meet these demands. Manga, anime, and otaku culture being one of the many outlets for these people. This could just be a chicken or the egg type of situation. Would Japan have had fan service like this without outside influence, or were they always destined to express themselves in this sort of way? That I do not know. But what we as anime fans in the West see still doesn't change. From what I can grasp, I do see all this in a new light though. Fanservice is something you literally can't run from. No matter if you're watching Western or Japanese media, it will be there in some form. But some viewers seem to get really hung up on anime due to preconceived notions that cartoons can't show these sorts of things, and all the sexual harassment and objectification, but that's besides the point. I can say having learned all about this topic has made me a bit more comfortable, and it gave me a new perspective on something I dislike. I fell down this rabbit hole because I felt uncomfortable watching a lot of anime. I now understand that the overtly sexualized side of anime we see today could be a response to the silent or not so silent demands stemming from things in Japanese society that aren't really in people's control. It might just be me cherry picking, but I feel as though a lot of popular anime these days are way more tasteful with their fan service, if there is even any fan service to begin with. I hope you learned something while you're watching this video, so next time this touchy topic comes up in the anime community, you can come in and give everyone a fresh and insightful perspective on this decisive issue. I've been your host, Echo, and I gotta go finish my High School DxD rewatch.